I watched my best friend accept an award for my invention, so I ruined her career with one email. This is a story of betrayal, ambition, and revenge, and justice. She stole my research. She erased my name. She lied to the world about saving lives. While she smiled on stage, I hit send. And in under 5 minutes, everything she built started to collapse. I stood in the shadows of the ballroom, clutching my champagne glass as the applause washed over the woman who had stolen my entire life's work. My best friend smiled for the cameras, accepting the award for the patent I had perfected in secret, unaware that I had just hit send on an email that would end her career. The crystal chandeliers overhead seemed to mock me with their glittering light, illuminating the lies Vanessa Sterling was currently spinning into the microphone. She looked radiant, I have to admit. She was wearing a silver gown that probably cost more than my entire year's salary, her hair falling in perfect golden waves. To the world, she was the genius savior of modern medicine. To me, she was the parasite that had been feeding on my intellect since our freshman year of college. But tonight, the feeding frenzy was over. To understand why I was standing there, shaking not from fear but from adrenaline, you have to understand the dynamic between Vanessa and me. I am Kennedy King. I am a very different person now than I was 6 months ago. Back then, I was a ghost. I was the quiet girl in the lab coat, the one who skipped parties to monitor petri dishes, the one who proofread Vanessa's essays because she was too busy networking with the dean's son. We met at MIT. I was a scholarship kid from Ohio, terrified that I didn't belong. Vanessa was a legacy admission, practically oozing confidence and money. She adopted me, that's what it felt like. She picked me up like a stray kitten, polished me up just enough to be presentable, and kept me around. For years, I told myself it was because she loved me. We were best friends. We were sisters. It took me a decade to realize that she didn't keep me around for companionship. She kept me around because I was useful. After graduation, we started a biotech firm together, Sterling King Solutions. Well, that's what we agreed on paper, but when the incorporation documents came through, it was Sterling Bioworks. Vanessa laughed it off over drinks, telling me that the investors responded better to a singular, strong brand, and that her family name carried the weight we needed to get funding. I let it slide. I always let it slide. I didn't care about the branding. I cared about the science. Our goal was ambitious. We were trying to solve the problem of neurodegenerative decay, Alzheimer's. It was personal for me. I had watched my grandmother fade away, her brilliant mind turning into a fog until she didn't even recognize my face. I promised myself I would fix it. I spent 18 hours a day in the lab, running simulations, testing compounds, failing, and starting over. Vanessa spent those 18 hours at galas, board meetings, and photo shoots. She was the face of the company. She was the one in Forbes 30 Under 30, talking about her vision for the future. Every time I brought up that I was feeling erased, she would hug me, buy me an expensive purse I didn't want, and say, "Kennedy, darling, you are the brain. I'm just the mouth. We need each other. You don't want to deal with these vulture investors, do you? Let me protect you from the boring business stuff so you can change the world." And I believed her. I was naive and I was focused. The breakthrough happened on a Tuesday in November. It was raining. I remember the sound of the rain against the lab windows at 3 a.m. I had been tweaking the molecular structure of our lead compound, trying to get it to cross the blood-brain barrier without triggering an inflammatory response. I ran the simulation one last time, expecting another failure, but the screen turned green. The binding affinity was 99%. I sat there in the dark, the glow of the monitor illuminating my face, and I wept. It worked. I had done it. I had found the key to arresting and potentially reversing early-stage dementia. The first person I called was Vanessa. She showed up at the lab an hour later, looking impeccable even at 4 a.m. She brought a bottle of Dom Perignon. We drank it out of beakers. We danced around the lab benches. I showed her the data, walking her through the intricate details of the patent claims we needed to file. I explained the mechanism of action, the unique protein folding technique I had developed, everything. She listened intently. She took notes. She asked questions, smart questions. I thought she was finally engaging with the science. "Get some sleep, Kennedy," she told me as the sun came up. "You've just saved millions of lives. I'll handle the legal team. I'll get the patent application started immediately. You take a week off. You've earned it." I took her advice. I went to a cabin in the woods for a week, disconnected from the grid, just sleeping and breathing fresh air for the first time in years. I felt light. I felt triumphant. When I came back, the locks on the lab had been changed. I tried my keycard 3 times. Red light, red light, red light. Confused, I called Vanessa. Straight to voicemail. I called the front desk. The receptionist, a girl I had hired, sounded uncomfortable. "Miss King," she said, her voice shaking, "Miss Sterling has issued a memo. You aren't allowed on the premises." I thought it was a joke. I thought maybe there was a containment breach or a safety hazard. I drove to our corporate office downtown. Security stopped me at the elevator. They handed me a box. It contained my personal items from my desk, a framed photo of my grandmother, a cactus, and a coffee mug, and a letter. It was a termination notice. It cited gross negligence and breach of contract. I stood in the lobby, stunned, as people I had worked with for 5 years walked past me, averting their eyes. I finally got Vanessa on her cell phone by borrowing a stranger's phone to bypass her block. "Vanessa, what is going on?" I screamed. Her voice was ice cold. "Kennedy, please don't make a scene. It's embarrassing. The board and I decided we needed a change in direction." "I invented the cure, Vanessa," I yelled. "I did the work." "Did you?" she asked, and the casual gaslighting took my breath away. According to the patent filing submitted last week, the sole inventor of the neuroregenesis protocol is Vanessa Sterling. The documentation is quite clear. You were a research assistant. A helpful one, sure, but let's not overstate your contribution. My knees gave out. I actually fell to the floor of the lobby. "You can't do this," I whispered. "I already did," she said. "And Kennedy, if you try to sue me, I will bury you. I have the best lawyers in the city. You have student loans and a used Honda. Go home. Find a new career. This one is over." She hung up. For 3 months, I lay in bed. I watched the news. I watched Vanessa Sterling grace the cover of Time magazine. The headline read, "The Miracle Worker." She gave interviews where she used my words, my analogies, my passion. She talked about her grandmother who, as far as I knew, was alive and well in Palm Springs playing bridge. She stole my trauma. She stole my grief. I fell into a deep, dark depression. I felt stupid. I felt used. I felt like I deserved it for being so blind. But then, the anger came. It started as a spark and grew into an inferno. I stopped crying and started thinking. Vanessa was smart, but she wasn't meticulous. She was a big picture person. She didn't understand the granularity of data. She didn't understand that in digital research, nothing is ever truly gone. She thought that by locking me out of the company's servers, she had cut me off from the proof. She thought the lab notebooks she had confiscated were the only record. She forgot about the ghost drive. 2 years ago, our main servers had crashed for 3 days. While IT was fixing them, I had set up a secure, encrypted private server at my apartment to run overflow simulations so I wouldn't fall behind. I had synced it to the main lab equipment. Because I was paranoid about data loss, I never turned the sync off. I booted up my old tower in my bedroom. I held my breath as the progress bar loaded. There it was. everything. Every time-stamped file, every failed iteration, every voice memo I recorded of myself analyzing the results. And most importantly, the metadata. I had logs showing that the files Vanessa claimed to have created on her laptop were actually accessed from my terminal under my login weeks before she claimed to have had her epiphany. But I found something else too, something worse. In her haste to rush the patent to market and claim the glory, Vanessa had altered the safety data. I was looking at the final trial simulations on my backup drive. There was a 4% variance in the enzyme stability. It wasn't huge, but it was significant. It meant that in a small percentage of patients, specifically those with high blood pressure, the cure could cause a massive, fatal stroke. I had noted this in my logs. I had written in bold red letters, "Do not proceed to human trials until stabilizer is perfected." Vanessa had deleted that warning. She had fudged the numbers in the report she sent to the FDA to make the variance look like 0. She wasn't just stealing from me, she was going to kill people. That was the moment I knew I wasn't just going to sue her, I was going to destroy her. I spent the next month preparing. I didn't go to a lawyer immediately. I knew that would result in a settlement, a non-disclosure agreement, and Vanessa walking away rich and quiet. I didn't want a settlement. I wanted justice. I compiled a dossier. It was 400 pages long. It included the raw data, the side-by-side comparison of my original files versus her doctored ones, the audio logs, and a timeline of her invention that was physically impossible given the lab hours she supposedly worked. Then I waited for the gala, the National Medical Innovation Awards. It was the Oscars of the scientific world. Vanessa was the guest of honor. She was set to receive the Innovator of the Decade Award and announce the start of human trials. Getting in was surprisingly easy. I still had the login for the catering company Vanessa used for her private parties. I knew the schedule. I didn't sneak in as a server, though. I bought a ticket on the black market from a scalper for $3,000, every cent I had left in my savings. I bought a dress. It wasn't silver. It was a deep blood red. And that brings us back to the ballroom. I watched her on stage holding that heavy crystal trophy. She was crying. She was actually crying. "This award isn't for me," she said, her voice trembling with practiced emotion. "It's for the millions of families suffering in silence. It's for the memories we will save." I looked down at my phone. The email was drafted. Recipients: the New York Times, the Washington Post, the FDA Ethics Board, the Patent Office, the Securities and Exchange Commission, and the Board of Directors of Sterling Bioworks. Subject: urgent, fraud, data falsification, and intellectual property theft regarding neuroregenesis. Attachment: thetruth.zip, 4 gigabytes. I took a deep breath. I thought about my grandmother. I thought about the 4% of patients who would die if I stayed silent. I thought about the way Vanessa had looked at me in that lobby like I was garbage. I pressed send. The progress bar whooshed across the screen. Sent. I put my phone in my clutch and took a sip of champagne. It took about 2 minutes. That's how fast information travels in the modern age. Vanessa was still speaking. She was thanking her parents now. "And to my father, who taught me that integrity is the only currency that matters." Somewhere in the front row, a phone chimed. Then another. A journalist near the stage looked down at his Apple Watch. His eyebrows shot up into his hairline. He grabbed his phone, tapped furiously, and then whispered something to the woman next to him. She gasped. The ripple effect was visible. It started from the press section on the left. Heads bent down, screens lit up faces in the dim room. A murmur began to rise, like the buzzing of angry bees. It competed with Vanessa's amplified voice. Vanessa noticed. She faltered mid-sentence. She squinted against the spotlight, looking down at the crowd. Usually, they were hanging on her every word. Now, they were ignoring her. They were reading. A man in the second row, one of the primary investors, a guy named Marcus, stood up. He wasn't applauding. He was looking at his phone, his face turning a dangerous shade of purple. He looked up at Vanessa, and even from the back of the room, I saw the look of pure betrayal. He turned and walked out. Then the whispers became audible. I heard words floating through the air. Fraud. Falsified safety data. Stolen. Vanessa tapped the microphone. Is everything okay? She asked, her smile wavering. Suddenly, the side doors burst open. It wasn't police, not yet, but it was the PR team for the event. A woman in a headset ran onto the stage and whispered frantically into the host's ear. The host, a famous news anchor, looked horrified. He looked at Vanessa, then stepped back as if she were contagious. The murmuring grew into a roar. Then, the large projection screen behind Vanessa, which had been displaying the Sterling Bioworks logo, glitched. The technical director in the booth must have received the email too, or maybe they were checking the news feeds. The logo disappeared. In its place, the live Twitter feed for the event popped up. The top trending hashtag was already #SterlingFraud. The first tweet on the screen was from a major medical journal. Breaking. Leaked documents prove Vanessa Sterling falsified safety data for Alzheimer's cure. High fatality risk concealed. Vanessa turned around. She saw the screen. The trophy slipped from her hand. It hit the floor with a deafening shatter, shards of crystal exploding everywhere. The sound silenced the room for a heartbeat. Vanessa stood there, frozen, the golden girl, stripped naked in front of the world. And then she saw me. I don't know how. Maybe it was the red dress. Maybe it was the fact that I was the only person in the room who wasn't looking at a phone or looking at the stage with disgust. I was just looking at her. Our eyes locked across 500 heads. I raised my champagne glass in a silent toast. The look on her face wasn't anger. It was terror. It was the realization that the lab rat had just dismantled her entire existence with a single click. Security moved in, not to arrest her yet, but to escort her off stage as the crowd turned hostile. Camera flashes went off like strobes, blinding and relentless, capturing her downfall in high definition. I turned around and walked out of the ballroom. I didn't stay for the chaos. I didn't need to. I knew what would happen next. And it did. The fallout was nuclear. The SEC halted trading on Sterling Bioworks the next morning. The stock plummeted to zero within 48 hours. The FDA launched an immediate criminal investigation into the falsified safety data. Vanessa tried to fight it. She went on TV crying, claiming I had hacked her, that I was a disgruntled employee framing her. But the metadata didn't lie. The forensic analysts confirmed everything. My voice was on the original tapes. My login credentials were on the original code. And the safety variants? Independent labs confirmed that too. If she had gone to human trials, people would have died. That was the nail in the coffin. The public can forgive theft. They cannot forgive a rich woman gambling with their grandparents' lives for a stock bump. Vanessa was charged with multiple counts of wire fraud, securities fraud, and making false statements to a federal agency. She is currently awaiting trial. Her assets have been frozen. The expensive lawyers she threatened me with, they quit when her checks bounced. As for me, it wasn't easy. I had to testify for weeks. I had to endure the scrutiny of the media. But this time, I didn't hide. I wore my suits. I looked the cameras in the eye. I spoke about the science with the authority I had always possessed but never claimed. The patent office voided Vanessa's filing. It took 6 months of legal wrangling, but with the overwhelming evidence, correct inventorship was restored. The patent is now in my name. But I didn't rebuild Sterling Bioworks. I let it burn. I started a new institute, the King Research Foundation. We are nonprofit, we are transparent, and we fixed the stabilizer. Last week, we began phase 1 human trials, safely. I walked into the lab this morning. It's NILAB. My name is on the door. I have a team of brilliant young scientists, and I make sure every single one of them gets credit for every single idea they have. I received a letter from prison yesterday. It was from Vanessa. I didn't open it. I ran it through the shredder, watching the paper turn into confetti. I don't need her apology. I don't need her explanation. I stood in the shadows for too long. Now I'm standing in the light, and the view is spectacular. So to anyone out there who feels like they're being overlooked, like their work is being siphoned off by someone louder, shinier, and more ruthless, keep your receipts, back up your data, and never ever underestimate the power of the truth. Because when the house of cards falls, you want to be the one holding the wind.